goosebumps every time, yeah, 713. To the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low-key. I'm sipping low-key and honest, flying right up. I get those goosebumps every time. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, we can throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Off the mugs. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Welcome to Loaded Bag and UFC. The full loaded transfer show is back. It is back, and we've got four and a half weeks of hopefully madness where we're talking all things transfers, boys. But how are you on this fine Sunday morning, Daz, Chris? It's another early one.
It's another early one. Why not? Why not? All good. All good. Still getting over the flu. Still a bit of it still hanging around, but apart from that, all good. Looking forward to the last few days of the Christmas break, of course, and into New Year. Chris, how are you?
All good, mate. Yeah. I must admit, during this holiday season, I am enjoying the early morning shows. I'm not gonna lie. It's been nice. So no, I'm very good. We were talking with Lee backstage, weren't we, saying that the Christmas period's gone really, really quick. So I can't believe it's the 29th already. Christmas seems a distant memory now, but yeah, I've got both eyes firmly on the January transfer window now. Can't lie, and obviously the big match tomorrow. But yeah, I'm all good. Really looking forward to talking to Liz. It's been a while. But yeah, all good. Pete, how are you doing, mate?
Very well, very well. I'm excited about Monday night. I'm not going to lie. I don't know whether it's a good thing or not. We've got a horrible record there.
Has to be,
yeah.
But yeah, really excited about that game tomorrow night. But more importantly, more excited about this right now. Talking football transfers, and in particular, European transfers. And look, we do this all the time. Make sure we get those likes up. We've got all the tunes coming in. It's great to see on the screen. Thank you for everyone coming and joining us on this Sunday morning. Some of us not even in this country. We've got Shane's in the house from Australia. Not sure what time it is over there, but yeah, great to have you with us.
Late evening.
Yeah, the late.
And it's but for Will Smith there, he was thinking about going to bed, but not anymore.
It's great to have so many that travel from all over the place to come and watch us live. So I appreciate you all. But we're talking transfers, and we're going to be talking European potential transfers because Newcastle have been linked with them a lot, particularly with Paul Mitchell now having the reins. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back our European expert, TalkSPORT's own Lee Davey. So let's bring him in and get cracking.
Welcome back, Lee.
Hey, how you doing? It's been a while. Where have you all been? No, it's great.
Waiting on a call, have you, Lee?
Great to be back. Great to see you all. Hope you all had a wonderful Christmas, and everybody watching right now, hope you all had wonderful Christmases. Let's talk football.
Definitely. Look, we weren't going to start with this, but we might as well bring this one up. And it dropped late last night from Luke Edwards, and it is an exclusive that Newcastle will resist any attempts to sign Alexander Isak, and they've valued him minimum 150 million. For any potential suitors. It seems like, and I get your thoughts on this really quickly, Lee, and then boys want to get your thoughts on this as well, because it was dropped late last night. Some people might be waking up this morning or been awake and not actually seen that this has been reported. So there's been a lot of talk over the last year of Arsenal are bound to sign him. Chelsea hadn't had little kind of tentative talks in the summer. Let's be honest, he's a top striker. Should Newcastle Lee be doing everything possible to make sure that Alexander Isak stays Newcastle United striker for as long as possible.
Yeah, I think that report's pretty logical, really. I think it would be an absolute disaster if Newcastle were to let him go. Certainly in January, it makes absolutely no sense for the club to do so. He is the man who's scoring the goals. He's in form. Newcastle have picked up as a club, have found a real nice run of form of late. Ultimately, you want that to continue. Newcastle in the semi-final of a cup, and what started off as a bit of a frustrating season now looks quite promising. So no, I mean, Isak has been absolutely key to that, and to lose him in January it's crazy. It's madness. Even the thought of it, I couldn't see it happening in a million years. It's not going to happen. I would categorically double down on that. That is not going to happen. However, who knows what's going to happen in the summer? We know that there's certain issues around PSR and Newcastle not being able to spend what they want to be able to spend, and and then obviously the likes of Arsenal and Chelsea, as you say, flashing the cash are sniffing around him, and why wouldn't they? He's a top quality player. He's been just a real breath of fresh air this season. He's been Newcastle's real talisman, and yeah, there's undoubtedly going to be interest in a player of that quality. He's been such a success since he's come to Newcastle, and yes, he's had some issues with injuries. It seems to have put that behind him this season, which has been real great news for Newcastle. So yeah, I mean, do everything you can to hold on to him. But ultimately, that's going to mean giving him Champions League football. That's going to mean fighting for trophies. So, on the pitch, there's a job to do there. Off the pitch, the key figures, the senior figures at the club you need to do all they can to convince him that, Newcastle United's a place for him to be, over the next 3-4 years. So, yeah, certainly things from a long-term perspective that the club needs to do to ensure him that St James's Park is a place where he should commit his future to.
Yeah, definitely, and that's one of the big things. Like you said, it's the trophies. It's letting him know that this is the place to be, and ultimately, this is why we're here today, to talking about transfers, because building a team around him definitely is going to be key to that. But Daz, your initial thoughts to that article that's been put out today or last night?
It's exactly what we've been saying. Like, I remember saying 150 million, and that's just even like we wouldn't even entertain a bid for Isak. But if that's the starting point, if anyone ever wanted to come near us. But yeah, no, he's there. He's definitely for the now. He's flying it at the moment. He's got records to break as well. But as Lee says, no, it's about Isak himself and everyone else needs to continue the run they're on now and get into European football, and yeah, it'd be nice to get into Champions League again. Then we know, give him the contract he deserves as well. And I think in the next 7 months we will be talking new contract with Isak. On his side, I wouldn't blame him if he was to hang on to the summer and see where we are before talking signing a new contract. But yeah, all positive.
Yeah, definitely, Chris. You have the same mindset. Newcastle need to keep him.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Daz has said. I think this season will have a big impact on whether we keep him or not going forward. I think European football is a minimum, is a must in order to even entertain keeping Alexander Isak. I think Champions League would secure him. I think he would sign a new deal if we were to get Champions League and have a reasonably strong January transfer window with the promise of more additions in the summer as well. It is, for me, it is key on how we do this season. I mean, let's say for argument's sake, we were to finish outside the European places. I think keeping hold of Alexander Isak long term is probably unrealistic. I think it's something that we've got to hopefully kick on this season, have a really strong end to the season, and then that'll secure him. I mean, I understand why a lot of clubs are being linked with him. It's nice to hear that 150 million price tag, and I hope that is the case. But I think that figure will drop if Newcastle's league position drops. I think our position becomes a little bit weaker. But do you know what? I'm living in the here and now. I'm enjoying Alexander Isak. I think he's playing absolutely fantastically. And I think, if we do end up securing Champions League football, Europa League football, I think there's a good chance that we'll keep him. But it's nice when your players are linked to other clubs because it shows they're doing well. And Alexander Isak at the moment, you could argue, is one of, if not the best informed striker in Europe.
Yeah. For me, European football ensures that Isak at least stays another season for me. It's not necessarily hinged on Champions League football, just my opinion. But, ultimately, Champions League is where he, of course, should be playing and wants to be playing. Europa League, I think we can be competitive in Europa League, and I think he could be a huge part of that. Europa Conference League, we can win it. And there's no better conversation to have with Alexander Isak than saying, give us one more year, and we can go win a major European trophy. And you can be the catalyst that goes and wins that. So for me, I think getting any type of European football will secure him for another year. And Craig Parker just put in a comment about Bruno Guimaraes. For me, he's in the same ballpark, the same conversation within that. I wouldn't entertain a bid, not if we got European football for sure. But yeah, like as you boys said, it all depends on where we finish at the end of the season. But look, we knew he's not going anywhere in January. All these teams talk about, put this money down. Arsenal haven't got 100 million, let alone 150 to buy him. Chelsea were put off from it last summer. They're maximising their spends with PSR and all the rest of it. No other team has that sort of money to put down on one player. Let's not forget. Some people's summer budgets. Nobody's got that sort of money to put down on one player. So they're doing it because they're basically saying he's not for sale. It's as simple as that. Let's not forget, though, last thing, Alexander Isak is happy at Newcastle United. He's talked about it in many interviews previously, how happy he is, the environment, the manager and everything around him. Of course, that may change in the future if we're not successful and where we should be, but no reason not to rock the boat there because he's happy. And there's a lot of fans talking about now the emphasis on Isak should push for a move. Why should he push for a move? I just think it's all nonsense, but great to have that type of sort of national paper put that out there because that just kind of dispels any potential thoughts of anything in January and almost for me puts that to bed. However, boys, we're here because we want to talk to Lee about the European football, European links, and of course, you keep your finger on the pulse with a lot of European football players in particular. And look, we might as well shoot from the hip. Let's start with it, and let's talk about a very talented centre back that Newcastle United have been linked with from the French league, and it's this man. Hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Is it Abdukodir Khusanov? Is that right?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, that sounds about right.
The reason why I put this up there is because way back in October, Graham Bailey talked about Newcastle United being linked with Khusanov alongside Tottenham. More recently, it's been said that Lons have talked about potentially moving on. Newcastle were linked in that piece again. In particular, their names were mentioned from Foot Mercato. And more recently, even more so, this week, Mark Douglas, friend of the channel, the iPaper, has said that Newcastle are targeting Khusanov. That could be the first test of Paul Mitchell's Newcastle United January transfer deals. Lee, tell us a little bit about Khusanov for those that don't know much about him, and there's a few. Tell us about him. What are his standout qualities? Why is he so sought after from a lot of big teams out there in European football right now?
I think really because he's a pure defender. He's very, very dominant, really, really dominant. And most of the strikers in Ligue 1 have not really had their way with him this season. So he's kind of came in. Kevin Danso, the Austrian centre back, was injured, and he came in to cover for him. And he's just been an absolute revelation. He plays in a back three, and I think that's important to point out. but he certainly really took to Lyon. He's took to the physicality of Lyon very well. He's from Uzbekistan. He's a Uzbek international. He is 20 years old, and he's nicknamed the Monster. He's a big, strapping lad. He's big, he's strong, and he's improving all the time. As I said, he's been a huge revelation, and certainly a lot of clubs looking at him now. He's only been playing for a very short period of time with Lens, certainly been in the spotlight for a short period of time, and certainly if he carries on the way he's going, then he's not going to be at Lens very long. As you'd expect, interest from the Premier League, Newcastle being one of those teams, the one or two other clubs again with a muted interest, but you can see that the ceiling is going to be really high with this kid if he continues on the same trajectory. Good in the air, chips in with a goal here or there as well, which is always pleasing. But certainly from a positional sense, very, very difficult to get past. As I said, big, strong, powerful, doesn't really fear anything or anyone. And he's just been one of the real finds of the season. If he was going to do your league and team of the year, so far he'd absolutely be in it. What would be interesting is to see what he'd be like in a back four. Again, it's kind of untried, not with any kind of huge sample size anyway, but definitely strong in that three centre-back formation, and certainly getting all the plaudits, and deservedly so, this season.
Yeah, he does look a player. And look, there's been since a few links have been coming around. There's a few, as normal with the Newcastle fan base on social media. The videos start coming out of. We sort of got compilation videos of all of these bits, and Tyson put a comment at the bottom there. Looks like a beast on a few tips that he's seen, and he does. Everything that you've said absolutely rings true. There's one of the clips on there where he seems to go to ground quite a lot, and one or two raised concerns and said, "Oh, is he someone that that is over aggressive in his tackling? Like, what's he like? Is he? Do you see a little bit of a patience from him, and does he do a lot of his work standing up, or is he very much on the ground, solid in the tackle type defender?"
Yeah, I mean, certainly when I watched him, he's kind of been very certainly stationary. He's been on his feet. He probably does go to ground. There's certainly going to be flaws in his game at 20 years old. The good thing about it is there's still room to mold him. You'll know that coming to a league like the Premier League, you're not going to be able to he's not going to be able to overcommit and think he's going to come out winning tackles by just sliding to the floor. There's way too much quality in the Premier League to be able to kind of just go to the ground. This kind of stuff we used to do when we used to play under 10s and the 11s and the 12s. Just that initial need to go for a sliding tackle. If that is a part of his game that needs a little bit of work on, there's absolutely no doubt that whoever's coaching him, should he go to Newcastle or another Premier League club, will absolutely be able to knock out of him very, very quickly. But no, as I said to you before, he's Will Steele, the Lens manager, absolutely loves him. But I think he'll be realistic as to know that if there's a Premier League interest and he wants to go, Lens can't compete with that. It's as simple as that. They can't pay him the wages, the lure and the bright lights of the Premier League are too much for anyone to turn down, especially an Uzbek player. As well, I'm sure that will be a huge dream for him to play in the Premier League. Doesn't speak any English, guys. He literally speaks Uzbek and Russian, so communication might be an issue, certainly to begin with. But as I said, there's a player in there for the future, absolutely. And for the muted amount of 25-30 million, I think that's hugely low risk. A hugely low risk signing for anyone. So yeah, as long as he develops in the right way, he's given time and patience, I think there's a real player there.
Definitely. Boys, I want to get your opinions on this situation. For you, is someone like Khusanov the absolute type of signing that Newcastle United need to be making in this January window? If you had a choice of the type of player that would be coming in, is he that guy that you would be going all out for, considering the amount of centre backs that we have been linked with?
No, definitely, Pete. Because looking at a few of them together, and he was the standout. He just looked absolutely class. As I said the other day, he reminded me of Botman a bit as well, and it'd be great to see that partnership together. One of the things then that I think came up in the chat, and I said it to you guys afterwards, and Chris, you clarify with me, but for me, it's because someone said that he's only about 5'6" or something like that, and I said what? But he's actually 6'1". So he'll be well able to hold his own. Actually, when he says 5'6", I thought maybe he's just the same height as Pete then. But then now it's got me thinking who's taller, Lee or Pete. But we'll park that for another time. But I have a question for Lee. With Lyon's being around, I think, on 7th position in the league and just outside European qualification positions, do you think that they'll cash in for that amount? It's probably too much to turn down.
Yeah, it does. I think that, if you can make a profit of 20, 25 million, up to 30 million, and you're a league and club, and your TV deal is giving you not a lot of money, if part of that TV deal hasn't still paid up what they should have paid up, there's all sorts of craziness going on in terms of broadcasting rights in France, then that money could be really, really key. They are looking to offload Kevin Danso potentially, because of this kid, because they've kind of unearthed this amazing talent that's coming through. But ultimately, when it comes down to the money, when it comes down to that, it's too much for a French club in this current financial climate to turn down. And I'm sure Khusanov will want to stay in it as well. And I think that, to turn down a potential move to the Premier League would be just scandalous. It's not going to happen. And, the opportunity to come to the Premier League to play with Newcastle would be, it's a no-brainer for him. But it depends. I think Lens will try and squeeze out as much money as possible. Absolutely. If they see that, Newcastle are desperate for a centre-back, and, there's the potential to, even up the stakes a little more, they will. The French clubs will do that because they need money. They need money. It's as simple as that. So there may be a little bit of bargaining. There may be a little bit of toing and froing there. But ultimately, if Newcastle want the player enough, I think he's there for the taking, for sure.
Cool.
Absolutely. Chris, your thoughts on Khusanov? Like I say, so many that we've been linked with, and there's a few that we've talked about previously, the likes of Antonio Silva. We'll come back to this conversation around Bakayoko Tomori as well. Jean Bar, and another one. Would Khusanov be, based on what we already know from what Lee's described to us as well, would he be that guy that you go to?
Yeah, he certainly fits the profile, doesn't he? I think we've been speaking on this channel now for a couple of years, saying that Fabian Schär's not getting any younger, and that really, if you could bring in a young centre back, someone who Eddie Howe can mould. I think someone in the chat says it. Get him Eddie Howe ready. Give him 6 to 12 months to integrate into the country. Lee mentioned the fact he doesn't speak English. That's obviously going to have a big impact. So maybe he'd take longer than most players. But with him being 20 years of age, great age. He's somebody who you're basically investing in, and to get a player of similar or equivalent quality or potential, if you like, say we were to get it in the Premier League, you're probably talking double, triple that figure. So it is very much a player who you're invested in with the hope that they're going to turn out to be really, really good. So yeah, I mean, he fits the profile. I suppose I had a couple of questions for Lee actually on Khusanov. And Lee, you mentioned that he plays in the back three. So the first part of me, first question was going to be like, do you think he could quite easily convert to being in a back four or a back two, if you like, as two centre backs? Is there any concern at all over, I believe there's quite a big quality jump. Certainly if you listen to Cristiano Ronaldo, there's quite a big quality from League A to the Premier League. Like, yeah. Do you think he could make that jump? And also, my final question, just as an add-on, you mentioned Will Still. Do Lens still have to pay a fine for every game that Will Still manages? Because I know that was the case in his old job, or has he got his qualifications now? That was my second question.
Okay, yeah. So first, I'll jump on the final question. So Will Still's now done and dusted with his
Right, okay.
with his coaching badges. So absolutely nothing there left to pay. So that is all good. All boxes ticked in relation to that. Your first question was about playing in the back three. No, sorry, playing in more of a, I guess, a 4-4-2, or sorry, a back four, I should say. Yeah, I don't see no reason why not. That's just Will Steele's way of playing. Simple as that. But let's be honest, I'm sure he's played in a back four at some point during his career. He played in Russia previously. So, not everyone plays in the back three. It's something that he's had to become accustomed to playing under Will Steele. Again, I personally don't have any recollection of him playing in a back four. So, for me, it's not something I've observed. I've only seen him playing under Will Steele's formation. But look, good players can adapt to different formations. It'd just be a case of seeing what he's got, what he's about. He does play centrally in the back three, so he plays a
Right,
more
okay.
central role. So in there, so if that's anything to go by, then yes, I do believe that he can adapt absolutely. Sorry, what was your second question? Sorry, Chris.
No. It was just around the jump from League One to the Premier League.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, yeah. So the jump, yeah. Look, there's no doubt there is a jump. Absolutely, I don't think there's a jump in physicality, which is a good thing. The French league's incredibly physical and absolutely on a par with the Premier League. So from a physical standpoint, I think he'll absolutely adapt. He won't get the 1, 2, 3 touches on the ball that you get in the Premier League. That's one of the observations I always make between Ligue 1 and the Premier League, is that it is fast paced. It is, there's the pressing is on another level. So where you would usually get 2 or 3 touches, you get that extra few couple of seconds to think about your next move. You're not going to get that in England. Perfect example is someone like Isak, who's always at your feet, always at your, that's a kind of attacker that he's going to face. Those kind of in your face attackers. So yeah, he'll have to adapt. He'll have to adapt quickly. Look, as I said to you, I think the key thing about it is if he does come, patience, absolute patience, because it is a step up. It's a step up in quality, a step up in speed. You know, but again, giving him time, he's showed enough. There's enough raw talent there to be excited about him, and it's going to take good coaching. It's going to take patience from the fans, the supporters, and just for him to get up to speed. And yeah, as I said, there's absolutely a player there, and a price of around 30 million, something around that price would absolutely be what I would consider a good investment for the future.
Definitely. Well, let's wait and see with regards to Khusanov. I think that will still rumble on. The window's not even open yet. So that's one to come back to for sure. Now, obviously, we knew you talked about the sort of the money in France not being there, particularly for the TV rights and everything else. French clubs struggling financially, and another club that was struggling financially is Lyon. Was mentioned a while back that Lyon have been handed a provisional League 2 relegation, and it involves a transfer ban as well. What's the latest on that situation? And that might then bring us into a conversation about 1 or 2 players based at Lyon for further discussion. So what is the latest with that?
Yeah, there's nothing more since obviously those reports came out. The DNCG, which is French football's financial watchdog, basically slapped a transfer ban for January and provisional relegation to Ligue 2. We know that is, just the thought of that is crazy. Lyon are a huge football club in France, and look, everybody across the world knows who Lyon is. They've got a huge stadium and they've brought through some wonderful players from one of the best youth systems in world football. Basically, financial mismanagement has put them in this position currently now. They are in debt of around 500 million euros. It is a situation whereby obviously it's not the same as England, where there's the PSR situation. It's completely different. The thresholds are totally different in France, and the situation whereby they have to make improvements before the end of the season to avoid relegation. Now, John Textor, who's the owner of Lyon and many other clubs around the world, has said it's not going to happen. We're not going to be relegated. You know, we're going to ensure that everything is put in place to lower our debt. It's reported that they will need to lower their debt by about 100 million euros before the end of the season. So that makes you think, well, how do we raise this? They're not going to be bringing anybody in January. That's not going to happen. So how do they raise this money? It may, you know, we may have to look at selling players, which is for Lyon a huge shame, purely because they're having a fantastic season. You know, we know this time last season they were staving off relegation. Now they are up to, I believe, the fifth when I last seen in the table, and they're having a really good season, and they're doing pretty well in Europe as well, in the Europa League. So they've really turned things around there. They've got, you know, some good players in. But obviously, you know, the vultures are going to circle, absolutely, because there's some top quality talent there, as Lyon have always had top quality talent. But this could really derail their season if they have to get rid of some of their top players, because ultimately, you know, there's going to be teams that are going to come in, look to bolster their squads with Lyon players, and probably get them at a decent price as well. So it's going to be interesting viewing Lyon throughout January, because there's a few players that teams will want to cherry pick from them.
Definitely. And we've highlighted a few, just a few. I know there'll be many more that may be of interest to not just Newcastle United, but other clubs as well. And look, let's talk about this one, because he's the most obvious one. I think most people, Rayan Cherki. Look, first of all, there have been some links with Newcastle United previously, but even Florian Plettenberg says that the transfer in the winter is no longer ruled out, as you've touched on as well with their situation. And there's interest from the Bundesliga and the Premier League as well. Look, what makes Rayan Cherki stand out, and you know how from what you've seen of him this season, how has he been getting on in Liga?
So Rayan Cherki was like the great hope. It was a great hope for French football. We could see that when he came through about 5 years ago. He's just, you know, people were really taken back by him. Now, look, his career trajectory hasn't really taken off in the way, you know, many expected it to be. I think that's due to a lot of unrest at Lyon. Lyon have been kind of going in the wrong direction, either both on and off the pitch, you know, a multitude of different managers. And, you know, he fell out of favour and really lost a bit of his form. This season, it feels as though we're getting the real Rayan Cherki. He's been arguably Lyon's best player. And, you know, just he's skillful, he's got silky skills, and you know he's lovely to watch, a lovely player. I know Newcastle like those types of players, those Ben Arthur, Newcastle fans like those Ben Arthurs and those Laurent Roberts and those players that can kind of just, you know, get you on the edge of your seat. He's another one, but he's technically better than all the affirmation players. Started to add some goals as well this season, which is good because that's one thing that's been lacking. But yeah, I mean, he's talented. He needs to be in the right setting. The one thing that I will say, he needs to be one of the kind of talismanic players in the team. He needs to be one of those that are kind of, you know, one of the leaders in the team, I believe, because you know, when he's not got an arm around him, you can see the worst of Rayan Cherki. But when he's kind of trusted, you'll see the very, very best of him. So how you treat Rayan Cherki, how you, you know, how he's kind of viewed within the team is very, very important to what output you're going to get from him. But look, there's no doubt there's an absolute talent there. He was linked. He was very heavily linked with Fulham in the summer, which I didn't particularly want to see, to be honest with you, because I think he can. With the greatest respect to Fulham, I think he can reach higher than that. And I think the reason why he's not gone yet is a couple of reasons. One is who he's been represented by, which has not been easy. He's got a new agent, so that should make it a little easier for him, for other clubs to want to negotiate with. But also because his form's been just so up and down. I think it was last summer he was available for as little as 15 million, and that's in euros. Look, after this season, it's probably going to be a little bit higher because he's found his form again. But I think there's a multitude of clubs that he could go to now. I think the Premier League definitely interests him. Definitely interests him. I could see him choosing the Premier League rather than the Bundesliga. I know there's been interest from Serie A, and there's an ongoing interest from PSG that's never ever gone away. The reason he didn't go to PSG because he was represented by Kylian Mbappe's mum's agency, and we know that that those parties are not on the greatest of terms, and that's why he didn't sign. He's now changed his agent. So PSG are in the running. I don't think PSG will get him. I don't think he'll go there. I think he's more likely to go to the Premier League if he's gonna leave. But yeah, I'd love to see him step up and move out of Lyon. It'll be a massive shame for the league because we're seeing the best of him now. But I'd like to see him really shine in a bigger stage. And he's one of those players that would just create magic out of nothing, and you just love him because he's such a talented player. He really, really is. So let's see what happens with that one. It'd be an interesting one.
Lee, just while we're on the topic of Cherki, and I guess it's something that kind of does to pop up when his name gets mentioned. But Tyson asked a good question here: is he a luxury player or is he temperamental, similar to Ben Arfa? Is he a bit of a gamble?
I think calling him a luxury player would be. I guess you could have said that in the past, but I think he showed signs that he's very. He could be a key player actually. Assists, as I said earlier, start to chip in with goals now, and more importantly, consistency. And that's the one thing that was lacking in his game. He's consistently, having decisive moments in games now. And this is why people are getting excited again. This is why there's a lot more links with other clubs. That's why he's been spoken about, a lot more than he was, 18 months ago, for example. I don't think from a temperamental perspective is anything like Ben Arfa. Ben Arfa was like being on eggshells at times, but you kind of accepted it because of his genius and his wizardry. So you accepted it and you took him for what he was. I wouldn't put him on a level of that. Has he butted head a few times? Yes, he has with managers, that has happened. But again, if you know how to manage that type of player, and I think Eddie Howe would. I think Eddie Howe does. I think he knows how to manage different personalities. I think there's definitely proof of that, and I think that he would absolutely be an Eddie Howe player. I think Eddie Howe would absolutely love to have this guy in his team. He just offers something so different to what Newcastle have got at the moment, to what anyone's got. He's, could play in different positions. He could play anywhere across the front line. He could play a little bit deeper. He's just, he finds those little pockets of space. He drops into those little holes and just, causes all sorts of nuisance for defenders. He's a nightmare to play against when he's on his day. He's an absolute nightmare to play against. But as I said, he's got something. He's very, very talented, and it'll be interesting to see what his next move is.
Cool. Definitely. And anything to add there or to ask Chris before we move on?
Bring him in. Just bring him in. Like honestly, for that kinds of money, he's been a player. Lee, like I've studied a little bit since we were linked with him. I think it was about 12, 18 months ago. And he looks a mercurial talent, and you don't see that very often. And I know, some people have said like the questions his attitude and stuff like that. But when you see players, I've just been talking with Tyson in the chat there. When you players like him don't come around very often, and it was the same with Ben Arfa. That's why Ben Arfa is still my all-time favorite player. He picked the ball up, and you just feel like anything's possible. And he's got that little bit about him where you don't quite know what he's going to do. And yes, for a manager, he's probably very frustrating. But as a fan watching it, when he picks up the ball, wide right, it'd just be it lift people's bums off the seats. And I think for really, if he was at the very top of his game, if there was no issues, behind the scenes, probably a 60, 70, 80 million pound player. And sometimes you've got to take a gamble when the price is lower to just go, do you know what? If we can sort him out, he'd be brilliant. And yeah, I agree with you. When you mentioned Fulham, it was just like, no, don't go to Fulham.
It felt like when Lucas Paqueta went to West Ham, I just scratching my head, just I still do. But no, you're absolutely right. I think there is an absolute player in there, and like you said, you've got a player that you can. Could be an 80 million pound player in the future, and there's no better place than France to get those bargains and to kind of build on and to make huge profit in the future if needed to be. But yeah, look, he's a great player. He's one of those players that is a bit of a throwback now, because there's so many system players now, isn't there? Everyone just plays in the system.
Yeah.
And he's kind of one of those street players who still has the opportunity to show his street qualities, and so many don't get to do that anymore. So I think, to see him at a Newcastle where you can still express yourself, you've got that quality, you're playing in a team that plays a way where if you've got this God-given talent, you're still allowed to express yourselves in these ways, as opposed to other clubs where you literally, you're given an area to operate in and you must stay in that area and you must, this is how you make your passes and this is where you must go. So it's nice that you still have these players that have this opportunity to express themselves in the way in which they are, in way in which they were brought up to play football. And, for me, Newcastle would be a really great place for him to go and develop and even further. But as I said, he's a real talent. He's a real talent. I just hope he can continue that. It's certainly in the second half of the season. But, if anyone gets the opportunity, please watch him. I know that Lyon is not as accessible now in the UK as it was, but anybody around the world that still gets it, definitely check him out in the second half of the season. Or he's obviously playing Europa League football, which we're privy to on TNT. So catch him when you can, because he's playing some really good stuff.
I'm just gonna we'll do something slightly different now, because I know we're short on time with you, Lee. But first of all, we've got 250 in the chat on a Sunday morning. Massive thanks to all of you for tuning in and to listen to us all, but in particular Lee for his expert knowledge. And make sure we click those likes. Let's get to 250 likes. Come on. It makes sense. Thank you for watching all, and we really, really appreciate it. Now, what I want to do, Lee, and I don't know how much time we've got with you, but
we're right for a bit.
There's a few players now, so what we'll do, we'll just kind of, there's comments in the chat as well, questions that people are throwing out, so we want to try and give some time for people that took the time to put comments in. We'll put a player up, may well be for France, may well be from another league that you'll be aware of as well, and just tell us about this player, not necessarily linked with Newcastle, or maybe, but just want to get your thoughts on this. So we'll stick with Lyon right now, just for the next couple, and then we'll branch out to other teams and leagues after that. So, Maxence Coqueret, talk to us about this man.
Yeah, we can see he's lost his way a little bit at Lyon. Real kind of silky player. Broke into the French setup as well recently. Probably Lyon's best player last season, but seems to have lost his way, seems to have lost his a little bit of his mojo this season. Still a really good player there, again, positionally very good, great passer of the ball, chips in with the odd goal here or there as well. But obviously needs to kind of get his career back on track. I'm not going to know, it's probably a little bit too extreme saying career back on track. He has lost his way a little bit in terms of his place in the team. He has spent a bit of time on the substitutes bench this season, which is a shame for him, because he was, his development, and it was going really, really well, and you could see great things for him. So I don't know what the future holds, but certainly, if there is a bit of a fire sale at Lyon, then he might be one of them. Again, he came through the youth system, so he didn't cost the club a penny. So, that he may, if there is a fire sale, then he may be one to go.
Another one that may well go, a lot of people don't know about this young man, but after you mentioned him to me, I've watched him a lot closer, and he looks a hell of a talent also at Lyon. Malik Fofana. We love our Fofanas on this channel.
Always a Fofana. Always.
We really do.
Fofana. Yeah. Okay. So young player. He's playing up on the left wing. Remember somebody called Wilfried Zaha? Yeah. Well, anyway, Wilfried Zaha left Galatasaray to come to Lyon, and the fact that nobody's heard about Wilfried Zaha in a long time is because of this guy, and it's because this guy's keeping him completely out of the team. Wilfried Zaha is basically not getting any game time at Lyon because this young star, who's been absolutely tremendous this season, and yeah, just kind of, just showing his raw talent. But there's something there again, another one off the production line at Lyon. Just it's been fantastic. He really, really has. Again, scored goals and been really pacey and tricky and causing all sorts of problems for opposition defenses. Young lad, he, again, many, many years ahead of him. Got a real talent, real future ahead of him. Good talent, and yeah, he's made that left forward berth his own, which is fantastic for such a young talent, really, to come through and to keep someone like Sahar, who obviously comes on big wages, especially for a Ligue 1 club, to keep him literally, doesn't even keep him on the bench, keeps him in the stands. He's that good. So yeah, keep an eye on him. He's only going to get better and better, this guy. I'm, Again, if we're talking about Lyon getting rid of players, I'm sure that I think he's the one that they would definitely put right down the pecking order, as to let's try and keep hold of him. If we're going to get rid of one or two others, great, but let's do our best not to let him go.
He looks like a proper talent. Some of his skills and movements on the pitch are just absolutely rapid.
Yeah.
Seen a few of his assists that he's created recently. Really, really good. A little bit closer time for you. I want you to tell us about this situation, because it's a player we have been linked with, by the way. And with Callum Wilson injured constantly and seemingly going to be moving on next season, we do need another striking option. So Randall Kolo Muani, things aren't going well for him under Luis Enrique, but talk to us about him and his potential to move in January.
Yeah, put it this way: if Randall Kolo Muani is at PSG on the 1st of February, I'll be hugely surprised. It looks as though he's going to go. He's not been in the match day squad for the last 4 games, which shows that PSG are kind of saying, look, or certainly Luis Enrique is saying, look, we don't want to get injured ahead of a potential move in January. We know that PSG want to bolster their squad. They've got too many holes in their squad that they need to work on and fill up ahead of the second half of the season. So they're going to look to offload some players, one of them being Kolo Muani, who's never really been a favourite amongst Luis Enrique. PSG have played the first 3 months of the season without a striker at all. And despite having Kolo Muani there, they've opted for a false 9 instead. So it kind of shows you, where he kind of fits in, which is pretty much nowhere. He looks to be going. I think he's got to a point where he wanted to fight for his place. He's now accepted that he's going to go, and that's going to happen very, very soon. There's obviously been interest from multiple clubs. There's been interest again from Eintracht Frankfurt, which is his former club. AC Milan have been one of the latest clubs to be interested in taking him on loan. I think PSG would prefer a permanent transfer, but as we know, that's always very difficult in January, and may need to accept a loan deal. Look, this is a guy who is very, very good for France. Very, very good. He's trusted under Didier Deschamps. He scores goals. He very, very key goals as well. If you look at his track record for the national team, very good. But it just hasn't worked out in Paris for him, which is really sad, because he's a Parisian. He's a young lad. He's he wants to play and fight for the club. And the annoying thing is, this is what PSG's new kind of new project was about. It's about building a team of Parisian players, and he's the first one out the door. He's only been there for 18 months. It just, nothing really makes sense. It never does at that club, but it doesn't really make sense. But look, his time's up, unless Luis Enrique was to leave, which that's not going to happen. But he's going to offer something good, and I hope he gets his career back on track, because he is a good player. I think it's good to point out, guys, that he's not necessarily a striker. He can play there, but it's not his favorite position. His favorite position is wide right. He can play wide left, but he can play through the middle as well. But I think it's important that he's not kind of, I guess, spoken about as a as a quintessential striker. He's not. But he's going to hopefully get his career on track and show what he's all about. Show Luis Enrique, what he missed out on, because his treatment hasn't been nice, and he's a lot better player than he's been made out to be. So we'll see where he ends up. But if Newcastle were to get him on loan, I think that he would absolutely, you know, I think he's got to be in his bonnet. I think this, he wants to get himself back into, his reputation is dropped. These people that, kind of don't look at him as the same player as he was because of his time in Paris. He's not been able to hold down that place. I hope that he's got a bit of a point to prove and he gets the opportunity to do that. Premier League has always been interested in. Even before he came to PSG, he always said he wanted to play in the Premier League. So maybe that's his time now.
Okay, well, definitely one to watch. Any particular price you'd put on his head? I think.
What if he's going to go? Look, PSG paid 90 million for him. There's absolutely no way they're going to get that back. I think they've accepted that. I think they might get anything between 30 and 40 million, and I think they'd accept between 30 and 40 million. Again, throwing money down the drain, as PSG usually do very, very well. So I think anything between 30 and 40 million. I think, especially if you left it late in the window, I think PSG would take that.
Wow. Okay. Moving on swiftly to another French-based player, Jonathan David of Lyon. Was linked with us in the summer. A friend of the channel, Ben Jacobs, did talk about him being on our potential options during the summer window. Talk to us about Jonathan David. Had a good season so far.
Yeah, he's had his best season so far, not just because of his consistent goal scoring, because previously he was a player who would score for the first 2 months of the season, then he wouldn't score for 3 months, and then he scored the back end of the season. So he'd go up in peaks and troughs in terms of his goal scoring, but now he's found a consistency, but not just in the league, he's been scoring key goals in the Champions League as well. Available for free in the summer, okay, out of contract. Said already, he's leaving the club. It's an interesting one because obviously, a lot of people, now starting to see just how good he is. It was a weird one because I think he's in a place of strength now, having scored in the Champions League, because although he was always available and he's been available for transfer for the last year or two, anyone that wanted him, I think Lille would have sold him. Again, a club that needs money. But now I think he's in a strong position where he can almost have a little bit of leeway in terms of where he wants to go. Because here's the thing, he's a Canadian international, and where anyone thinks, I think that does make a difference in terms of who you go and play for, or who's going to have who's going to come in for you. Now, here's the situation with him now is that leaving for free in the summer opens up a world of opportunities for him, because the likes of Barcelona are interested in him. I know there's Premier League interest, German interest, Italian interest. I think Juventus were looking at him as well. So when a player is free, then that opens up a very low risk situation rather than going out and paying 40 million for a Canadian international who's scored a few goals in Ligue 1. So now, there's lots of opportunity there for him to choose where he wants to go. There will be interest, there's no doubt about it, because especially Lille, who look to be going through to the latter stages of the Champions League, certainly where they are now, certainly into the knockout stages. And there'll be more of him. You'll be able to see more of him because he's having a great season. Feels like it's one of those seasons where, look, I'm leaving. Let's pop myself in the shop window here. And he's certainly doing that this season. So, like I said, he's really generating a lot of interest. There's a lot of speculation about where he's going to go. In terms of anybody who wants him, it'd be interesting to see if anyone opts for a cheeky low fee bid in January to beat that summer rush. Still think even a low cost bid that Lille are not going to sell. I don't think they'll sell him because, again, it would derail their season completely, scoring all their goals. And it makes no sense for them to do that, because also they can turn around and go, well, all right, we can sell him for 15 million quid in January. To be honest, to learn more than that by him shooting them or firing them to the Champions League again next season. So, the money and the riches of the Champions League, that I think Lille would rather keep him in the hope of, earning revenue from Champions League football from his goals. So I think it'll be a summer tug of war between multiple clubs for his signature, and it'd be interesting to see where he goes. I just hope he makes the right choice and not one You know, not one to say like a Barcelona or somebody like that, or where he may not be a first choice player. He needs to continue his development and be a first choice player somewhere. But he's a good player and he's definitely improving. And I think I'd like to see him in the Prem. I really would. I think he would suit the Premier League really, really well. Real fox in the box.
John's asked a quick question. Does he play right wing, or can he play on the?
He can do, but he can do, but he does his work in the box, in and around the box. That's where he's most deadly. That's where his best attributes are. He's got pace and power and strength and can beat players. And yes, he can play on the right, but again, you're probably negating his true qualities, which is in and around the box.
Okay. One last one from the French league before we move on to a couple in other leagues before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Angel Gomes, staying with Lille. Angel Gomes, the England international, has been linked with Newcastle United previously, earlier on at the back end of the summer. Obviously now an England international. Talk to us about him. How's his season going?
Yeah, good. Yeah, he had a bit of an injury at the start of the season. He had a big clash of heads in a game. I think it was in October, and he was out for a little while. But he's come back and he's continued his form. Real key player for Lille, and I think as much as Lille are going to miss Jonathan David's goals, I think they're going to miss this guy. He's a real playmaker for them. Provides so many assists, and he's already told Lille that he's going to leave at the end of the season. Again, another one like Jonathan David is out of contract at the end of the season. He has spoken that he would like to return to Manchester United one day. I don't know if that's on the cards, obviously with Ruben Amorim coming in. I'm not sure if that's still something that, an option that he would go by. So we'll see what happens with him. I think a Premier League move's definitely on the cards for him. I think he'd like to come back to the Premier League. I think he feels like an Eddie Howe player to me, to be honest with you. He feels like he'd slot into that Newcastle midfield really, really well. I don't know who he'd replace, of course. I think that midfield three. I think that midfield three really, it's set in stone now, isn't it? The Tonali, Guimaraes, and Joelinton. But I'm not sure where he'd fit in, but he would definitely be a really good addition to that squad. We'll see what happens with him, but he's definitely leaving at the end of the season. He's definitely leaving Lille. So there's two players that are coming out of Lille.
But if we're lucky enough to get European football, we earn that right, then we need a squad of players. So that's where he potentially come in if we were looking at a player like him. That's for sure. But let's get that European football first. A few other players, Lee. We'll go over to the Dutch league for one player that's been linked with Newcastle United, Johan Bakayoko. Been talked about as a potential option for Newcastle on that right-hand side. How much have you seen of him? Do you like him? Could he do the business in your opinion in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think he's going to be set for a move, isn't he, from PSV? Whether that be in the winter or certainly probably more likely in the summer. PSV again are romping to the title. They're still in with a shout of qualifying in the Champions League in the top 24. But yeah, he's one of those real kind of throwback wingers, very strong, very direct. What he's got great crossing ability, but he's one of those wingers. I believe he's left-footed, but he plays on the right, so he likes to cut in, whack those in-swingers into the box, but he's very, very good with that. I think he's got 6 goals this season, so chipping in with goals as well. PSV are quite high goal scorers anyway. They put in 4 or 5 goals a game anyway in the Eredivisie. But a lot of eyes on him. Again, nice age, early 20s, Belgian international. But yeah, anyone looking for a real direct winger, he's your man. I think that I'm not quite sure on what the price tag would be. I think PSV would want something, quite a substantial fee for him. Again, considering his age and his ceiling. But yeah, absolutely a good winger. When I've watched him play in the Champions League, he's certainly got some talent and would suit the Premier League for sure. 100%. You want that direct style. You want that, that player who's just gonna, run and run at fullbacks, then he's your man.
Definitely, we need someone on that right wing, a position of importance, should we say?
Yeah, I know.
And look, it would be rude of us not to throw in this man as a topic of conversation. I'm not sure how much you've seen of him this season.
Here he is again. He's back. He's never leaving this. He's never leaving this. Yeah, we spoke a couple of years ago, didn't we, about Hugo Ekitike, and you know, I always said at the time when he was at Rams is that PSG was the wrong move for him. I said to you at the time, Newcastle would have been a great place for him to go to at that particular moment. It didn't happen, and for me, took the wrong move. You know, he came to a club that had Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, a club that was in a mess, really, and he was treated really badly. And I'm so glad he's got his career on track at Eintracht. I'm so glad he's got a really good, connection built up with Omar Mamouche. I don't know if we might talk about him as well.
But
why
not? Here he is.
Yeah, there he is. So yeah, absolutely. He's doing great, and he's scoring goals, and he's looking like the player that he was at Rams. He's got his confidence back. You remember he was out of football for a whole season. He was kind of put into what PSG call the loft, where their undesirable players sit and they don't play. Not painting PSG in a very good light, am I? Today, no, seriously.
You just swap places with Kolo Muani.
I'll tell you, I'm a fair talking guy, and you know, and they've not acted very well at times. One of the times was with Ekitike in terms of his treatment, but so good to see him get his career back on track. He's playing so well, and he's scoring goals. And yeah, this is Ekitike that I wanted to see at Newcastle 2 years ago when we was discussing him, and he may still get there. And I hope he does. Because I know that I'm pretty sure Eddie Howe's still keeping an eye on him. I'm pretty sure of that, you know, because that talent doesn't just welter away, and I'm sure eyes are still on him.
Yeah, definitely. Who knows? Like I say, with Callum Wilson going, we do need to go and invest in another striker, whether that's January or certainly in the summer. We'll have to wait and see. You got time for a couple of questions, Lee? Before we wrap up?
Sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of questions, Lee. A lot of questions. But we'll narrow it down. I'm going to try and leave the domestic ones really out and concentrate on European ones. But first of all, just to clarify for Anthony, he says, Jesus, is that Mike Tyson? No, that's Lee Davey. Not Mike Tyson. But we'll clarify more on Lee's what Lee does towards the end as well. But let's get into some questions. Good one from Jimmy Watt. He says, good morning all. I hope everyone is doing well. One day I'm doing the rounds yesterday is Johan Bakayoko. He's a young French lad playing for Parma. Do you have any information about him, Lee? Do you know much about him?
Not too much to be honest with you. We know that a lot of these young French lads are moving now to Italy. And here's the thing. One thing I will say about these young French talents is that some of them don't even play in Ligue 1. They're literally snapped out of the youth systems or out of academies and taken away just because of the way in which France's youth academy is. It's just, you know, it's one of the best out there, really. So he's gone to Parma. There's multiple players playing in the German league, multiple players that are playing in Spain that have all come through the youth system. And there's just, as I said, at the moment, French football, certainly at grassroots, is absolutely flourishing. This is why Ligue 1, you know, has so many debuts out. They rely so much on their youth system, 16, 17-year-olds playing in Ligue 1. And they have to as well from a financial perspective. They have to, because they don't have big TV rights. They don't have, you know, lots and lots of money coming through into their clubs. So, you know, this is why it's so important to keep an eye on French football, and, you know, just to see, you know, what kind of talent comes through. It's the most scouted league in Europe. Takes the most knocks as well. You know, it takes a little bit of the jibes as well, especially on social media. But it is the most scouted league in European football. So yes, it's again, I've not seen too much of Palmer this season, so I don't want to say that I know lots about this guy. I haven't really seen him play too much. I haven't watched too much of Palmer, but certainly someone I'll keep an eye on, and have a look. Thank you. Thanks for that. I'll have a look at that.
Jimmy's after Foxy's role, I think. But nice one, Jimmy, and thanks, Lee, for your answer there. Good on here, and I know it's one from your list, Pete. Would Donnarumma be sent to the loft? Would PSG go in for this, or could he end up in Newcastle? Chevalier, and in those rumours.
Ooh.
Another one from Lille. Another one. So yeah, Lucas Chevalier is the Lille goalkeeper, and I think this is probably an area that Newcastle I can see addressing this summer. Now, this is the guy that PSG are also interested in. This PSG again got in issues over the long-term future of Donnarumma, and this is someone that certainly he's probably been, I would say, the best goalkeeper in France for the past 2 seasons. Fantastic with his feet, and I know we have to say that now about goalkeepers, don't we? It's the first thing we have to talk about goalkeepers. But yes, he's very good with his feet. Brilliant, good communicator. He's confident, commands his area, good in the air. You know, all of those attributes that you'd expect from a modern day goalkeeper, he's got them. He's absolutely going to break into the French national squad over the next couple of seasons. But this is a guy who's going to, again, he's going to reach the very, very top if he continues the way he is. Another one that Lille will probably want to try and hold on to at least for another season, especially as they're unlikely to lose some real key players this summer. If they can keep him for another season, then they would have done well. But absolutely someone to keep an eye on. Very, very good goalkeeper, and certainly the top goalkeeper in France at the moment.
If you had to give a figure of how much he would a goalkeeper of his quality would cost, what would you say is a rough guide?
I mean, considering Lille don't let their players leave for cheap, you know, again, we look back at some of the past fees that they've had for the likes of Pepe and Osimhen, and you know, some of those have been very, very expensive, 70, 80 million over the years. Okay, slightly different now. There's more of a desperation and a need for money. I think they would want something around 45 to 50 million for him. I really do, because he's such a great goalkeeper. He really, really is. And again, plenty of years ahead of him. Young chap, early 20s. I think they probably want something around that figure for him. Whether they get him or not, I don't know. We know that's a lot of money for a goalkeeper, but they'll absolutely want as much as they can. They a little bit different to the likes of Lens and some of the other clubs in France, whereby you don't always get your way with Lille. They will drive a hard bargain. They will, they're a different club to kind of to do business with. But he's certainly a player that everyone should keep an eye on. Really good goalkeeper.
Very interesting.
Right now, I wouldn't be sure with you on it, Lee, but before one of these questions, it comes from David. He goes, "Read the old film. Sissoko Fofana is leaving Saudi this January. Any idea where he's going?" Cheers, David.
It was a crying shame when you went there. To be honest with you, it's it is what it is. He should have been playing Champions League football. He missed that opportunity with Lens last season when he moved to Saudi. I'm sure his bank balance is looking very, very nice. Luckily, he's still got time on his side. I believe he must be about 28 now. Something around there. He must be around about 28 now. So look, he should really be in the prime of his career at this point. I don't know where he's going. I've not seen anything on any potential links. And I hope that he does come back to Europe, because he's absolutely got something to offer. I'm not sure where he would go. Potentially back to France. I'm not sure if an English team would take an opportunity on him. He's absolutely got what it takes to play in the Premier League. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about it. That's why it made it all the more, surprising, disappointing that he went to Saudi at that stage of his career. He would have been somewhere certainly, you know, when he got into his 30s, no one could kind of argue with the fact that he might go and play there and go for a nice payday and enjoy the, you know, the latter stages of his career. But, you know, to go at 26 to Saudi, it just didn't make any sense. I'd like to see him come back. Would be interesting. Certainly one to keep an eye on. And absolutely, as I said, he's, you know, I'm still pulling for Seko Fofana. You know, I am. I still think he's a real top quality player. So yeah, hopefully one day we get to see him, you know, on our TV screens.
Definitely.
Right, we're coming. I'm going to come towards the end of the questions because there's a lot of questions we're going to keep for other shows because they're more Premier League based. But I'll give you the choice, Lee. Do you want to go towards a Barca question, a Man City case question, or maybe even who's a standout player in the Premier League you think Newcastle should go after?
Oh, what's your Barca question?
Barca question, right? Let's go for the Barca question. Comes from the Rufford Dominican. Wherever you are, thanks for the question. He says, all the links to Eric Garcia have any basis given to the Barca issue. So basically, the situation with Barca and Almo and Jonathan Tah as well. You think any of them would be on the move? Could we be linked with any of them?
Jonathan Tah, obviously, you know, at Leverkusen, and I know that they wanted to bring him in. Daniel Olmo registration situation is just insane, you know, and continuing to find him in the summer. And again, it just feels like more mismanagement of that club, just, you know, just working beyond their means to try and keep up with Real Madrid. And I just don't think they have the means to kind of do that, certainly off the pitch. But obviously they're giving a good account of themselves on the pitch. I think anyone can be linked with anyone Barcelona related. I think there was again, Frankie De Jong has been linked with a move away. Look, they need to free up some space in their squad. We know that, and I expect to see some movement from Barcelona in January. That may be some cut price deals, some free transfers to make room for the likes of, you know, Olmo and Jonathan Tah. But again, Barcelona is such a car crash, and it has been for the last few years, is that, you know, it's hard to predict anything that goes on at that club. They you know, you know, they've obviously had the situation where they were lifting levers at the club. They, you know, sold rights to their training ground. They've done everything they can in so many different ways to, you know, to try and compete, to try and get over these kind of barriers that are in their way to, you know, to help compete with Real Madrid and get back to the top. But they're struggling. They're struggling because it seems like they're working beyond their own means, with the hope that somebody will give them an option, give them the opportunity to kind of open the door or find a loophole for them. And it's not happening because La Liga and the authorities are kind of slamming doors in their faces. So it's not working for them. But this is really embarrassing, especially this Dani Olmo situation. It's really, really embarrassing for the club because this is a top player. He won the Euros in the summer. You know, they spend, you know, they brought him in for, you know, some good money, and now he's in a situation where he can't play. That's incredibly embarrassing for a club of Barcelona's size. So look, all I would say, certainly the fringe players at that club are absolutely. You know, they're on the market. There's an opportunity to sign some of these players without doubt, just purely because they need to offload players and make space in their squad. It's not working for them. So yeah, the likes of Eric Garcia, anyone who's, what you say, on the fringes, or, you know, I'm sure Barca are open to offloading so they can bring in the likes of Dani Olmo, who's no doubt on decent set of wages and can't kick a football. So yeah, it's again just another day in the life of Barcelona, which is just astounding at times.
It is. It's mad.
Last question, and I'm going to take it from some comment from the chat here, and it's about Paul Mitchell. What's your thoughts on Paul Mitchell, Lee, and now our sporting director, Newcastle?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he was obviously did his business in France, knows the French market very well. That's why I would expect, you know, something to be done, some deals potentially in France. I'm sure he's got one eye with him in his scouting network on the French league. He knows it very, very well. He knows the value of French football, but not just France, just all across Europe as well. He's well connected. You know, he did a good job down in Monaco, brought in some good talents down there, who've always, I mean, Monaco have always been focused on bringing through young talent, not just from the youth system, but recruiting from across the French league. So I think, as I said, the whole Khusanov deal that we spoke about earlier, I can see why he would probably pinpoint a player of that ilk, of that quality, and that age. So yeah, I'll expect Newcastle to certainly dip into the French market with Paul Mitchell. It's one that he knows better than any other market. And as I said, he knows that he knows how to find a deal there. We spoke also about the French academy system. Again, I'm sure he's well connected across the academies in France. You know, trying to unearth some of the newest talent that are coming out. And the good thing about in France is that these young players is a very different attitude. Whereas in England, you got these young players that will come through the youth system and their dreams to play Premier League. It's the same in France. They'll come through youth system and their dreams to play Premier League. So, you know, it's like, it's the same thing. They will come through and it's like, okay, right, here's your debut. You can play for a club like Auxerre, you play for a club like Lens or someone or Toulouse or someone like that. But that's almost like it's a stepping stone. So the Ligue 1's a stepping stone to the Premier League, Serie A. So yeah, I would expect Paul Mitchell certainly to be active this January. I think Newcastle definitely need to strengthen in certain areas. We know January is always a difficult month. Teams will, players will come at a premium. Teams don't want to lose top players, especially, with the second half of the season ahead and decisive moments. But it makes sense if you can bring in one or two young talents ahead of the competition. Usually quite good it's quite a good time. January is to do that. Unearth a couple of talents from maybe France or other European leagues, Portugal, for example. So yeah, I think it's a good move for him being there after what happened with obviously the previous sporting director. Is he still on gardening leave?
Unemployed at the moment.
He might as well be. 5 months at Man U and then
Yeah.
What
a mess that turned out to be. I think Newcastle in good hands with Paul Mitchell. Absolutely, I think he's shown his worth to Monaco over a long period of time. So yeah.
We didn't have any more questions, and Dunne was absolutely right. Fountain of knowledge is Lee. We didn't have any questions, and then Foxy, our resident European South American scout, comes in, and he's got one player that he wanted to throw at you just before. He's only just come into the chat. Ayoub Bouadi of Lyon. What do you know about him?
Yeah, he's again young player. I think he's about 17. He's really come through this season, and he's been really good and played really well in the Champions League. He was man of the match against Real Madrid. Don't you remember a couple of months ago when Lille beat Real Madrid 1-0? And he got man of the match. Am I allowed to say man of the match these days? Anyway, he was man of the match that day, and he was fantastic. And strangely, I mean, he's still played well in Ligue 1 when he's played as well. I think he's being managed by Bruno Genesio. He's being managed very carefully. I think there's excitement around him. Centre midfielder, should make note of that. He plays in midfield, and they're taking their time with him because he's obviously very young. And if you've just pulled off a man of the match display against Jude Bellingham, Fede Valverde, and Luka Modric, then it's not bad, is it? It's not bad. So yeah, so that's where we are. He's a good player. He's played a few times this season, but played very, very well. Keep an eye on him. I don't think he'll be going anywhere yet, but definitely want to keep an eye on. Good player.
Another one to keep an eye on for sure. And there was one last thing which gives you an opportunity to plug where people can find Julie. I think there was one question because someone thought
it was from Lemon Tea.
Yeah, someone thought you were an in the know agent or something, but you're not.
Oh God, no. No.
Now,
No, that's not me. No, I'm not that.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, I, I hide away too much. That's my problem. Pete's told me too often. That's my problem. I hide away too much. Not active enough.
Yeah.
Not enough people see me. But no, I work for TalkSPORT. I'm a football writer for TalkSPORT, and I work on the Trans Europe Express, which you can catch tonight from 9:00 every Sunday with Danny Kelly and Andy Brass. Also contribute to that show and also help produce the show as well. So kind of on air, but a little bit behind the scenes as well. So a little bit hybrid there. But I am around, just kind of throwing things into the mix for the show, and occasionally popping on to chat European football. That's my thing. That's the thing I like the most. So that's where you can find me, and Twitter and X and Blue Sky and all of that. I should be on it more, as Pete keeps telling me.
Well, you should be on it more, and we will do our best on Loaded Mag and UFC to ensure we'll do our best to ensure that we get you
on social media. I'm too quiet across social media. I always have been. I don't know why I'm like that. I'm way too quiet, and it's hindering me, as Pete keeps telling me.
Yeah, it is. But we will do our best on Loaded Mag and UFC. We'll do our best to get you out there for sure.
All good.
Boys, unless you've got anything to say, we'll wrap it there. It's been a great chat. Thank you for taking the time.
No, it's been great. You've got me out of bed as well. This is a time of year where I'm just stuck in. This is great. You got me up, and I'm really pleased that you've got me up. I've enjoyed it. Always good to get up and talk football with you guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Good stuff. Thank you to everyone in the chat. We've had 300 watching over the course of this morning. Brilliant numbers. Thank you for taking the time as well. And give our tweets and stuff a like so more people can watch this particular show, and there'll be more coming. This is it. Full Loaded Transfer Show is now in full effect, and we've got guests like Lee lined up to come and talk all things Newcastle United transfer. So, boys, anything to add before we wrap up?
Well, Pete, to give you some time to switch us over to the other tab where the outros are. Just like to echo what you said. Thanks, Lee, for giving up your Sunday morning to come in and join us. Best of luck to PSG as well for the rest of the season.
Oh, they need it.
Absolutely.
So it happens, but just very quickly.
Right.
I think, Newcastle's going to be a good watch towards the end of the season. Finding some form. Going to be very, very good watching. See how it goes this season. So I think it's really intriguing. Now they've found some form.
Lee, what do you reckon for tomorrow? Just a quick mini preview. Do you think Newcastle will beat Man U at Old Trafford tomorrow?
Form would say yes. Form would absolutely say yes. But I think it might be a draw. I don't know why. I can't give you an informed reason. Just got a feeling that United might come out the trenches a little bit tomorrow. But yeah, I think it might be a draw. But if I'm leaning anyway, if we're going to say anyone's going to win, it'd be Newcastle, maybe 2-1. But overdue a win there in the league.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be watching that. Look forward to it.
Sure. Right. Nice one. Enjoy your morning, everybody. We'll see you later. See you in the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Take care, people.
sir.